Everybody.
Same one of last week. Go on.
Welcome. Do we have any new visitors today? Any new people? I mean, welcome. We start off with a reading and some reflection, and I will begin. Did I press the wrong thing?
Just go on. Yes.
You could change it.
Oh,
I'll change it for you.
okay. Thank you. Today, this reading is from The Way, the Truth, and the Life. Dry trees. For if they do these things to the green tree, what will they do to the dry one? Jesus is the eternal vine, full of divine sap, spreading his loaded branches, consoling fragrances, and hearty fruit to all. In return, the world offered him nothing but the cross of affliction and an infamous death. Since the remotest millennia, he is the Savior, the pure one par excellence. What should we expect in our turn, indebted beings that we are, symbolic still, dry branches on the tree of life? With each lifetime, we need new experiences of reparation and correction. We are like lifeless trees that the human passions have uprooted in their destructive rage. Country folk make punitive holes in peach trees if their scrubby branches do not produce. The effect is beneficial and profitable. The martyrdom of Christ was beyond anything we could imagine. As a sublime vine, he suffered for wanting to give us abundant sap. As trees that are dry due to the heat of evil, we suffer by necessity for our own good. From a spirit of cruelty and ingratitude, the world brought about the tragedy of the cross for the Master. On the other hand, if we have crosses to bear along the pathway of redemption, it is not because God is unyielding in carrying out his laws, but because he is the loving Father of our souls, full of wisdom and compassion as he educates us. Emmanuel is the Spirit, who psychographed by Chico Xavier. So this was a compelling passage in that when we think about Jesus' life and the extent of his suffering, the level of persecution that he underwent, it's incredible, kind of unfathomable, to be turned against, betrayed, tortured. And he maintained a sense of himself solid in his love for humanity and compassion, as well as a sense of his own light. And that's something that, when I think about something that I took from this passage, is that we often feel similarly persecuted by life in ways, maybe in small ways, in more dramatic ways, by our circumstances or experiences or what's happening on the outside of us. But I think that there also exists a great deal of suffering, and maybe even more suffering, from inner persecution, from guilt and shame and self-criticism or self-loathing that doesn't have any other function other than to keep us down. That often is an incredible suffering that isn't apparent from the outside, but that people carry around from within, and is a source maybe of the most suffering that we experience. And we can, Jesus is a wonderful model in this regard to demonstrate what it's like to treat, oneself from the inside with kindness and compassion and love, and be the light for oneself, which is always connected to how we are in relationships with others. It immediately affects our capacity for compassion for others when we're compassionate with ourselves, which isn't always easy because it doesn't mean that there isn't pain, but it typically means there is much less or no unnecessary suffering, which, like, guilt and shame brings. It's not consistent with our true nature, the essence of our spirits being love and kind of infinite capacity for love. And so that's the light, and when we're not in that place, we're kind of acting opposite or not in line with our true nature, which is the biggest source of suffering. So Jesus as educator, as a model, as someone that we can call upon internally to lift ourselves and kind of feel in line with our true nature, which is a great source of contentment and happiness, and always extends to our immediate circumstances in relationships and beyond. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to do our good morning, our initial prayer. So let's pray. Dear Father, thank you so very much for this beautiful day, this opportunity to be here today, to gather in your name, to reflect, to meditate, to learn, and to grow. We are blessed. We are so thankful. At this time, we ask you to please be with us. May all the good spirits who work with us, who take care of this spiritual home, be present, embracing us, connecting with us, and helping each one of us to get the necessary resources from the message, from this loving environment that can help us to live here today stronger and with the necessary tools to live our lives with happiness and peace. So bless all of us. We ask you in particular to guide our own thoughts as we speak this morning so that they are in line with your plan and not our own. Thank you so much for everything, and so be it. Okay, so good morning everyone. So nice to see so many people here. Take a second and say good morning to the person next to you. I would like to make that into a habit on Sunday mornings. Yep. Greet your neighbors. Say good morning. It's so nice to be here. All right. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, and it is December. So as traditionally we do every December, we spend the entire month thinking about Christmas and the meaning of Christmas, and it's a way in which we actually celebrate Christmas at the Spiritus Center and Spiritism in general, besides eating and spending money, and we actually take some time to meditate about the meaning of Christmas, and that's one of the roles of the Spiritus Center, is to guide us in this process. So what is the meaning of Christmas for you? So there's a general meaning of Christmas, right? So we all can say what, if you ask Jake, he'll say it's Jesus' birthday, right? So that's the Christian meaning of Christmas. But what is the meaning of Christmas for you in particular? What does that mean to you in your journey, in your stage of evolution, where you are in your awareness? What kind of things would you like to see changing for the upcoming year? Because when we talk about the birthday boy, right? So, what is it that we have to offer? What is our gift? And our gift, that we're going to put our Christmas tree symbolically is, what are we willing to give Christ for Christmas that we think that we can transform, that we can renew within ourselves. So this is a question not for today, this is a question for the month. Today, in particular, we are going to talk about two things. One of them is the ways in which Jesus spoke about himself. Who is he? How he defined himself? Did he define himself as the most intelligent human being on this planet? Does he define himself as being the most powerful man in this planet? No. So in which ways did he speak about himself? So what does he mean to us in Spiritism? How do we see, how do we understand who this man was? In his own words, not by what different authors have seen or spoken or studied him in different religions, how he defined himself. It's important. So what did he say he was? I am the, anyone? He said so many times, I am the light, the light of the world, right?
The way to the Father.
The way, I am the way. So we're going to look at some of these definitions, and then on the second part, we're going to go into one of his invitations, the way that he invited us to be with him. All right, so, but in the Gospel, according to Spiritism, in chapter 1 of the Gospel, we find this text. One day God, out of his inexhaustible charity, allowed humankind to see the truth dissipate darkness. That day was the advent of Christ. Christ was the initiator of the purest and most sublime morality, the evangelical Christian morality that is to renew the world, bring men and women together, and make them brothers and sisters. A morality, in short, that is to transform the earth and to make it a dwelling place for spirits more highly evolved than those inhabiting it today. So again, this is in the first chapter of the Gospel, and so it speaks about the importance and the uniqueness of the advent of Christ. So it says that God, in its love as a father that he is, he thought, it's time to send someone to give these folks a hand. And so he sent us a Christ to be with us. And so that's a significant event. And then, what characterizes him is the initiator of the purest and most sublime morality. So the morality that he offers, the morality that he exemplifies more than anything else, it is what, once integrated in our daily lives, individually and socially as a society, it will transform our planet. So that is just to set the tone to the importance, to the significance of acknowledging the power of the message in terms of transformation, individual transformation and social transformation. Okay, so with that in mind, I am. Who does Jesus say he is? And so he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the light of the world. I am the bread of life. I am the gate. Anyone who wants to be saved needs to go through that gate. I am the good shepherd. So just a few ways in which he defined himself. So let's briefly look at each one of these ways. So I am the bread of life. So how do we understand that? What does the bread do other than fill us with carbohydrates and, right? What does it do?
It
Nourishes. So the bread nourishes. So he is nourishment. So when he says, I am the bread, he's not talking about the physical bread, obviously. He's talking about the fact that he is spiritual nourishment to all of us. And that different than our daily bread that we eat for breakfast, this bread you pass from one hand to the other, you distribute to whomever you want. But he is the type of nourishment that's available to everyone, regardless, right? It's like the sun. It's out there. It's the nourishment that's out there constantly, all the time, for everyone indistinctively and always. So he is the nourishment. So when we think of Jesus, we always referring to the message, because there are many other Christs in the universe. We just happen to know this one. And so he nourishes because everything in him and about him is what? Love. And love nourishes. Love fulfills. And so he is the bread of life. So Emmanuel, in chapter 54 of the same book that Sherry wrote, in a message that I believe is just one before after the one you read, he says, because of our smallness, we would succumb to spiritual hunger and stagnate in the darkness of ignorance if it were not for the vine of truth and love that the Supreme Lord gave us in Jesus Christ. From these divine sap proceed all our lofty achievements as we toil on the earth. Fed by that sublime source, we must realize that without Christ, the world organization would crumble due to lack of foundation. In him, we find the living bread for our souls, and from the very beginning, his infinite love on terrestrial orb has been the divine principle of all life's truths. So I have a few passages of Emmanuel, most of them from The Way, the Truth, and the Life. And again, just showing how these readings are really, they are actually a nourishment for the soul. Because the Emmanuel, in the introduction of this book, he tells us that in this work, he picks up very tiny passages of the gospel and he gives a very particular interpretation. And that the gospel is so rich, it's so abundant, that you can really unfold it in many, many different interpretations. So he offers his very particular and special look at the ways in which Christ spoke and taught us. All right, but he said he's also the light of the world. I am the light of the world. So by that, what do we understand? His mission was to what? To enlighten, right? His mission was to bring clarity and light to the areas of darkness. Areas of darkness because we are still ignorant many times of the divine laws. Areas of darkness because we are, once we immerse in matter, it's hard to see, it's hard to have a spiritual sight. So he is the light. So when I look at someone, it might be someone in my close relationships, it might be a public figure. In our darkness, we see evil, we see competitors, we see all kinds of selfish people. All those labels that we put on others, we do because we live in darkness. Because the day that the light shines within us, that we integrate Christ's light into ourselves, then when we look at somebody else, no matter who he or she is, no matter where he or she is, we are not going to see an evil, a hostile, a selfish person. We won't even see the other. We're going to see someone who is just like us, someone who is divine, someone who is worthy of our love and respect. So that's why he's the light, because he makes things more clear. We see things under the light and not under the darkness that we find ourselves so often, because we lack the spiritual sight. And so we see people for the way they present themselves in the present moment and not from the divine beings that they are. So we lack light. So he is the light of the world. He brings light. He helps us to see better. He helps us to see the world, life, and people for what they are and not for what we perceive in our very short sight. And so as we identify more and more with Christ's light, what happens is that we become lights ourselves. So we become workers. We identify as disciples of Jesus. And so that's when he said, you are the light of the world. Okay, so we become light more and more with him as we integrate the teachings in our own lives. Okay, so I am the bread that nourishes, I am the light that brings clarity and discernment to our lives, and I'm also the gate. And so in this passage, he says, I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. So here he's talking about being the gate, right? And whoever enters through the gate will be saved. So he's the gate, meaning that he is the reference, right? So when we go to the gate, when we go through him, through his teachings, through his examples, we are saved. Saved from what? Saved from ourselves, saved from our own smallness, our own infancy, our own immaturity, our own illusions. So he is the gate. And here it's interesting because he continues to talk about the second sentence, they will come in and go out and find pasture. So what does that mean when Jesus says that? The first sentence is kind of easy to understand. But so, come in and go out, it means movement, right? You moving, okay? So it means action. So, and what type of action? Spiritually intelligent action. That means that we understand the purpose of life and we understand the essence of who we are, and our choices and our actions are based on this knowledge. And so when we are acting, when we are moving, no matter where we are, and we are in this position of service, of love, making ourselves available to others, we find pasture. Anytime that we are moving and that we are available to do the work and available to help others, we find opportunities to work and opportunities for fulfillment. So we find nourishment, okay? So it's not enough to say, I am with Christ, or Christ is within me. It's necessary, and then go home and pray and live your life for yourself. It's necessary to be moving in and out, and no matter where you are, to be available for service, to be available to love. When you live your life like this, you find passion, you find fulfillment anywhere and everywhere, because every single person, every single circumstance becomes an opportunity for you to go to the gate. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what the gate means. And before we go on, just a reminder that he also said, enter through the narrow gate. So first he defined himself as a gate, right? But here he says, enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. So in this passage in particular, he's talking about the gate for life, for real life, for the life where you are making choices, they're bringing fulfillment and peace and happiness. So you feel truly, truly alive. Because the fulfillment that the matter brings us, whatever that might be, gives us a very, very brief, unsustainable satisfaction that over time tires us out, drains us. if we're working only and exclusively for the things of this world, we end up fatigued and empty. It does not fulfill. So, in order to achieve, to conquer the life that Jesus has to offer, which is the type of life when you wake up in the morning and you feel like so alive, so filled of gratitude, so filled of peace, so filled of contentment, because everything, no matter what, no matter how chaotic the world is outside, it just feels right within you. You're so centered. This is true life. This is also freedom. Freedom of resentment, freedom of guilt, freedom of material attachments. We must be or have certain things in order to be happy. You are free from that. That is the life that he is offering. But in order to do that, we have to go to the narrow gate. It's narrow. It feels narrow. It feels narrow because for us right now, it's difficult at times to give up on the immediate interests. It's hard to give up on the illusions. It's hard. So it feels narrow. We have to lose the spiritual weight to go through the gate, right? So just kind of a passage that's important to remember. But so he says that he's the gate. I like this picture. So the gate is a passage also from one environment to the other, from one room to the other, from one ambience to the other. And if you Google the gate, then you're going to see that, there's several gate pictures. There's always a little bit of darkness on one side and a little bit of light on the other side of the gate, which means that the gate can be understood with two different places of awareness. Or perhaps a place of unawareness, and then you cross to a place of awareness. So that's one way in which we can interpret this passage. And Christ becomes this gate. Going through the gate, going through him, will take us from one place of awareness to a place of greater awareness. But the gate has also been interpreted as opportunities for progress. So every trial, every expiation, or every decision, conscious decision, or even unconscious decision that we make to love, to act in line with, it becomes a gate. It becomes an exercise. It becomes a passage for a better place, this place that we all are seeking to achieve. But the gate can be also representative of a sign of renewal and mental. And you see that I put in bold here, attitudes and behaviors, renewal of attitudes and behaviors. Because it's not enough to say and to repeat again Christ's words. We say that. I say that. When I read the gospel, when I was putting this lecture together, and I'm reading, right? When all the things that he says, I'm the bread, I'm the light. I feel so moved by it. I read, I listen, I repeat to myself, and I move, and I feel like, yes, I do want this bread. I'm thirsty for the water, the living water, and I do want this light. That's my mental renewal. It means that I'm mentally working on my desire for the new, for what the life that he has to offer. However, not always my attitudes and behaviors follow my cognitive, even emotional desire to be in a different place. So Emmanuel speaks of that when he says, whenever we see believers using fine-sounding words to address the Master, but whose innermost being has not yet been renewed, they are like prisoners bound in chains. These brothers and sisters may be at Jesus' door because of the sincerity of their intentions. However, they have not yet succeeded in entering his sanctuary of love. So I don't know about you, but I do identify with this passage. At times, obviously, right? It's not like we are multidimensional beings. There are some areas in which we are able to cross the door, at least one step into the door, right? And so many areas that we are at the door contemplating the idea to cross the door, to enter the sacred space, but it's still hesitating. It's still like, maybe in 2018, right? And we kind of postpone the entrance because there are other interests that still override this desire. And so that's why we need time, experiences, relationships, so that we are guided through experience, a lot of times through suffering, to difficulties, to a point where we say, no more, I'm crossing this door. I'm going to, this no longer is serving me, okay? All right, and finally, he says that he is the way, the truth, and the life. So, no one comes to the Father except through me. So, again here, he did not mean to say that he, the man, was the only path, but certainly the things that he taught us that were also taught by many other big missionaries, such as love, such as compassion, generosity, benevolence, they are the way, they are the truth, right? And he was the missionary that not only taught about all those things, but again, he was able to live them in every single circumstance of his life. So if we want to reach that place of full life, the life that he had to offer, he is the way, he is the truth, and he is living in him, with him, or him within us. We will experience this abundance of life that we all desire to achieve. So again, let's go to Emmanuel, and all that from the very same book that we read today. Sherry read in the beginning, The Way, the Truth, and the Life. Emmanuel comments in this passage, and he says, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. His imperishable light has shone down on Earth's millennia as the Word of the beginning, and has pervaded the world for nearly 20 centuries. Each and every day, he prolongs his tolerance regarding our debts, our difficulties. It is in our best interest, however, to raise the standard of our will, to establish disciplines for our personal use, and to educate ourselves by getting in touch with the Divine Master. He is our benevolent friend, but we have neglected his counsel so often that we are prone to reaching dark regions of indefinitely postponing the inner illumination we need to acquire life eternal. So I just like this passage because, as we reflect into the new year and in all the things that Jesus is and means and offers us, it is in our best interest to raise the standard of our will, means to work on our will. Sometimes we say, I want to do differently, but it's a very superficial wanting, because emotionally we're not quite ready to let go of old behaviors, of old relationships, of old paradigms. We are not ready yet emotionally. So anything that we say cognitively without an emotional follow-up, it's still on very shallow waters. So it's more than just saying, I want to do this. Internally, we need to be ready to move from one edge to the other, to cross. And a lot of times we are not. But we can establish discipline. So I always say that the work of inner transformation has two directions. The most powerful and lasting transformation that we can perform is when we change from within. So understanding our emotions, understanding our wounds, understanding why we do the things that we do, right? And healing. Once we heal the emotional self, then it's easier to transform. But we can also, in the meantime, use of discipline. So you can say, I want to do this so badly. I still don't understand the reasons why within me I need this type of behavior, or I need this type of making this type of choice. I don't understand. I'm going to continue to work on understanding. But I also know that this no longer serves me. So out of discipline, I'm going to choose not to do. But that takes courage and takes also a tremendous faith that at the very end of the day, it's going to be a worthwhile effort. Because it's much easier to say, I'm not going to do this anymore, when you don't feel the need to do that anymore. But when the need is still in you, it's a big effort. The spirits tell Allan Kardec in the Spirits book that Kardec asked the spirits if we sin when we think of things that we shouldn't do, and if there is merit, where is the merit? If there is merit in resisting those things. And so the Spirit says that yes, that the goal is not to wish those destructive behaviors anymore, but that there is also tremendous amount of merit when we still are filled with those desires that don't serve us, but we can resist them. There's tremendous amount of merit in the resistance. So Emmanuel, always, he's a big fan of discipline. That's what he prescribed to Chico Xavier, the medium that he worked with. He said, okay, we're going to be with you, protecting you and guiding you, but on your end, there are 3 requirements: discipline, discipline, and discipline. And so many of us are not very good in this area, so it's something that we might want to reflect for the new year, that were established disciplines, okay, to help us to get in touch with the Divine Master and to speed up our process of enlightenment. Okay, so now that we know all that He is, all that He means, a question for Christmas is, how much are we tapping into these resources in our life? How much are we eating from this bread? How much room are we making for the light to penetrate us? How much of our choices reflect the awareness that He is the way? From the choices that we are making, are we choosing His way, or are we choosing other ways? So these are some of the things that we can think about, because He's there, the light is there, the nourishment is there. And He says, come to me. Come. Reach out to these resources. I am here. All of you who are weary and burdened, and I'll give you rest. Are we going to Him? Are we reaching out to Him? Because He knew and He saw our struggle, our frailty, and the difficulty. Although He was offering abundance of life, we still go for the crumbs. And so we get malnourished. We get fatigue on the way. So He says, come to me. In this passage we find here, at the time Jesus said, I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hidden these things from the wise and learned and revealed them to the little children. Yes, Father, for this is what you were pleased to do. Come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So, in this first passage here, let's look at this. So, because you have hidden these things from the wise and learned. God does not hide anything per se. It's hidden because a lot of times intellectual knowledge feeds the ego in such a way that we become blind to the things of the Spirit. So it becomes hidden. In review to the little children, Jesus used children in the gospel several times to exemplify what? Humbleness, pure of heart. The little ones, the humble. So the ones who are humble, it's not that God revealed to them, but when we are humble, when we are open to learning, when we don't think that we know everything and we are open to learn the truth, right? We can see more. So that's why humble people a lot of times have a greater ability to see. And then he says, come to me. Now let's think about that for 1 second. Let's imagine Jesus standing here. There's a lot of pictures on the internet that you guys have seen where he's standing with open arms, right? And think about yourselves like in a moment that you're like really, really tired. You know, those moments where you're so tired that all you can do is cry. That you're so fatigued, that you're so burdened with concerns, whatever they might be. And then you stop and you pray. And then in the depths of your mind and your heart, you're going to hear this voice saying to you, come to me. Come to me. What a loving invitation. Come to me. I'm reaching out. Here are my hands. Come to me. Here's my shoulder. Come to me. Rest. Rest. Come to me. Let me hold you. Let me embrace you. Let me give you the strength that you're lacking right now. That's it. That's his motherly, using still the earthly paradigms of gender, his motherly self, integrated. Come to me. Like a mom, like a dad would say to a child that's broken, who fell, who's hurting, who's crying. Don't we do that? Say, come on, come on, come on, come here. And we bring the child and we put the child close to us and we tighten him or her so he can feel safe. That's the same thing. Come to me, all of you who are weary, who are tired. And so I will embrace you, I will dry your tears, I will give you consolation, I will protect you. And then what's really interesting is he is calling us. He is ready. He's always there for us. Question is, are we going to him? And so Emmanuel, again, now in Living Spring, he has a text that says, can you go? And so it says, everyone listens to the words of Christ who invites the troubled mind and the tormented heart to seek his refreshing embrace. However, if it is easy to hear and repeat, the Lord, come unto me, how difficult to go to him is. Here the master words are poured out like a vitalizing balm, but the bonds of immediate glorification are just too strong. Gratification, immediate gratification are just too strong. So sometimes we're super tired and you say, come to me, we're here, come to me, and we want to go to him, but we still have difficulties because in order to go to him, we need to let go of certain things that are still attaching us to the suffering. It's not that easy. So sometimes, you know, we have the perception that the world is very hostile towards us. Everybody's hostile towards us. Are we being hostile towards others? Can we work on our anger? Can we work on our hostility? Can we try to understand why we behave in the ways that we are? Because once we realize why we are doing the things that we are doing, then we are going towards him. We are moving towards him. So, and then in the same passage, it talks about the yoke. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. So what is the yoke? What does the yoke represent? So take my yoke, take my teachings, take my examples, take what I have come to teach you, to show you. Abide to God's laws, basically. Abide to love. That's Christ's yoke. So if you take his yoke, if you take his teachings upon yourself and learn from him, you will find rest for your souls. We find peace. Because in love there is peace. Right? So every time that we take his yoke, which means we learn, we understand, and we practice. So for example, one of the greatest examples of taking Christ's yoke is to forgive. So we can do lectures about forgiveness, I do. But I will not find rest for my soul if I cannot take what I say and feel within myself the ability to forgive. But when I forgive, I release. Forgiveness is freedom. Forgiveness is peace. So when we take Christ's yoke, the teaching, we integrate in our lives, we find peace. For my yoke is easy, I would argue with him that, not so sure. And my burden is light. So what is the burden? The burden is, once you learn all these things, now you have a duty. What is the duty? To love and to be charitable. That's a light duty. Right? So, Christ's yoke, knowledge, practice of God's law. There are, you can take like a reflection. I'm going to speak from God energy. But yet, how powerful is this, next step, able to tell Jesus, and those of the, think about all of the gospel. While however, any place can be consecrated to divine service. Many disciples in the various Christian denominations have got involved in theological investigations, transforming the Lord's teachings into a dead relic on altars of stone. Nevertheless, Christ hopes that all of us may make his gospel of love and wisdom a prayer companion, a textbook for our daily learning experience, an inspiring source for our humble actions in our daily work, and a code of good manners for fraternal interaction. This is outstanding, no? So it's really the final message for us today as we start to do our shopping and think about what we're going to eat for Christmas and all those good things, because they're all wonderful. It's a time of celebration, right? Let's remember this. We, each one of us is a missionary. We are disciples of Christ. So in the times of need, let's reach out to him, because he is an abundance of love and nourishment to all of us. In doubt, he is the reference. Remember his gospel. If you don't know if what you're going to do is good or bad, just abide to the main and most important principle that he taught us. If you were the recipient of your own action, would you like to be receiving that? If the answer is not, don't do it. Don't do it. So use this principle to guide your life, right? And let's work in moving towards him, because he is with us. He has been with us since the creation of our planet. He's the light that has shined through all the centuries, as Emmanuel has said. But we need to open up to the light. We need to let it in. And we need to become light everywhere. Everywhere. Not only here in the spiritual center, where it's probably the easiest place to be nice to each other. But we need to take the goodness, the message, his examples, and shine out there so that we can be a light in our own lives and in the lives of others, making life for everybody better. So, thank you. And at this time, we still have about 8 minutes, so are there any questions, any comments?
I'll share a little story that reminded me when you were speaking. Obviously at a physical level, but my son, you know how moms always know when their children, something is going on, and I called my son about a month ago, and when he said hello, I went, are you okay? And he's like, I'm okay. And I said, well, you know, I mean, no, really, what's going on? And to make a long story short, we talked about other things, we hung up. He would not take my phone call for the next few days. Asked his brothers, do you guys know what's going on? No, he's fine. A month, but I let it go. I stopped asking him, but I kept on calling him and kept on calling him. A month later, he called me up and he said, Mom, we had a miscarriage. And then he just let it all out, and it was amazing the love that happened when he, you know, it's kind of the same thing. You know, Christ is there for us, and once he came to me, I could feel the lightness coming on him. I felt the bonding between us and the love. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's a great analogy. And sometimes that's what pain will do, the struggles will do. It kind of breaks our resistance in a way that we open up and we surrender, and then we're in doing all, try to nourish at all times particular things. For me, so because we saw with your father was he just by being present and not with ourselves, we are going to people over there coming for the first time where we're going to go to stand and that this is a seek to concern. I'm going to do our final prayer. Dear Father, thank you so very much for the blessings of this day. Thank you very much for everything that we have, but particularly for the knowledge, for the gospel, for this message that grounds us, that helps us, that nourishes our souls. We ask you to continue to help us to be open to the teachings, to the light. We ask you to help us to be able to see better, to be in touch with a higher level of awareness, and for that awareness to guide our lives, our choices, and our relationships. We ask you to bless our homes, our families, our loved ones, wherever they are in this or in the next realm of life, and be with any person who might be in need, in darkness, physical, spiritual, mental, so that they too can feel your embrace and your love. Thank you so much. May we leave here today nourished by your presence and stay in this way until we're able to return next week. And so be it. All right, let's go to our final announcements. Some important things before everybody leaves. The first and most important thing is that this Saturday we have our end of year Christmas party that is going to take place at, can you turn the music off? That's going to take place at my house in Miami Shores. We have a little sign on the wall here and outside. You can just take a picture if you need the address for the party. And it's a $15 contribution. It helps raise funds for the center. So it's going to be a very nice time. The weather is absolutely perfect. We have a dinner. We spend time together. We talk. Depending on how much fluid we absorb from one another, we drink and dance as well. So it all depends. But it's always a great time to be together. So please come, not only because but we would love to be together. So this is our web information is also okay. Is I want to this Lopes campus. 850 people. You can December. So it's from here. Announcement that our on when is the 8th of December on Wednesdays at 7:30. We're going to be starting a new course in January 11th, right there, the Spirit's Book course. It's going to be led by our friend Carlos, who's here with us, myself, and Andrea, who you know, she is going to be speaking next week. So January 7:30 to 8:30. If you're interested in the course, please let me know. But it's a great opportunity, again, to study, to deepen our knowledge, okay? If you have already studied the Spirit's Book and the Gospel, you're also invited to join us for the study of Heaven and Hell. But you cannot do both courses at the same time. But that needs to be approved by me, because I just need to make sure that you're not going to get to the course and be asking some very basic questions that we have already studied in other courses. So I'll just guide you to which course will be the best for you, okay? Also, it's going to happen on Wednesdays from 7:30 to 8:30. The Spirit's Book course is every Wednesday. Heaven and Hell is every other Wednesday, okay? With that, I think I said everything. Other than that, have a great Sunday. God bless all of us, and we'll see you guys next Sunday.